And we're rolling, and we're here, and the hiatus is over. It's been about 3 months, and I've tried to record podcasts by myself and just doing it by myself, but it didn't feel right without Maddie B. And so Maddie B, the producer, is here in the studio. The last podcast that we were actually together, we weren't doing it here in the studio, right? It had to be... You can turn up your mic. Yeah. It had to be... the episode before that was the last time we were in the studio recording something. And maybe back in December, I started trying to start the master random journals, and just didn't work out. It just felt odd. Something about recording by myself in the room was odd. So I have to have Matt. I have to look at Matt as a crutch, even though his back's like to me most of the time. And it just helps me. You anchor me, Matt. I don't know if that puts a little twinge in your heart, and little heartstrings are being fluttered.
Little back rub.
Little back rub. But you'll take it, yeah? So now we're here and we did it. And before we started, I took Matt over to the new studio, which is still being renovated. And it's coming along slowly but surely. It looks great so far. And we're excited to set up the new spot and do podcasts there, and more often, more frequently. I wanted to do this sort of short, digestible version of Master Random to where it's not 2 to 3 hours long, but more like 15, 20 minutes. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I might impart a little, the very little wisdom that I have of myself, and maybe not. Maybe it might just be random bullshit that don't really matter to you. And I also promised myself I was going to try not to cuss. So if it comes out, I'm trying to be more mature about this. Coming back 3 months and trying to put a little bit of change into the podcast. A lot of change is happening in my life. A lot of things going on. It's one of the big reasons why I kind of took a break in doing the podcast and not really focusing on wanting to try and do the podcast. I had started a new job, and when you move industries or sectors or whatever it may be, it's almost like a proving ground again. It doesn't matter how many years that you've spent doing your job or you're an expert. There's still sort of that proving ground when you enter a new realm, a new company and stuff like that. So I've really just been focusing on work, and I'm moving into a new place and getting the studio all set up. So a lot of demolition and a lot of renovations is going on, and just takes up most of my time. And a new added thing about me is that my girlfriend of 5 years is pregnant. So we have a kid coming along. So everything, it kind of just happened all at one time, and I didn't know how to take it. It's almost like a balancing act. So it's the podcast had to take the back burner because now I have to tend to my ever pregnant growing baby or girlfriend who has a baby who's ever growing, and starting on this new job, doing renovations at the house. And so in between time, I just have to sleep and concentrate on sort of keeping my mental health going, right? But podcast, it's ironic because podcast has always been this therapeutic thing for me, and now I had to put it to the back burner to allow myself to have those times to myself. And now I'm also dealing with my dog who is sick, 14 years old, started having seizures, and now we don't know how long he's got left, and we're just kind of letting him live in that comfortable state and see how things go. And I don't want to say it's been tough. It's been very interesting to manage time like this. When earlier during the pandemic, we were deciding to move out of the current studio, our apartment, and I said, "Nah, I just started a new job. I don't want to do too many things at one time." Well, we found out we were pregnant. We're like, okay, let's move into the house. Let's start doing renovations. And now everything is just all at one time. Exactly completely 180 of what I thought it would be. And like I said, it's been very interesting. It's been very, very interesting times. I thought the podcast was going to grow after episode 200. And my whole thing that I was hanging on to for episode 200 was evolve, right? Everything has to evolve. The next evolution of the podcast was the live show, and to do more live shows. And then the pandemic hit, and it's like, oh, okay, well, it's back to podcasts. And then things started sort of regressing with the podcast. I wanted to do online stuff, and I felt like it wasn't for me. It didn't feel as raw as it is sitting with someone sitting in front of you, sharing the emotion and sharing the energy and having the conversation. So with that happening, and then everything else happening all at one time, it's obvious how the podcast sort of took that regression and that back burner state in my life. And instead of the podcast evolving, I started evolving without the podcast. The last 5 years of my life has been dedicated to the podcast, but I had to take a step back from the podcast in order for myself to evolve, and in order for me to understand the changes that my life is going to go through. And I couldn't do it with the podcast, and I never forced it and never tried to force any episodes. I asked people, and we have people waiting in the wings to have conversations on the podcast, but well, this is it. That's what I led it to. And now over the last week, I've just been itching to get back into it. I miss it a lot. And so I texted Matt. When did I text you, Matt? Last week? Or was it just on Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday.
It was Saturday. I texted Matt on Saturday, and I was like, all right, bro, come Tuesday, let's do this. I want to do podcasts. I don't want to do it alone. Like I said earlier, Matt's my crutch. He's my anchor. And it's going to be the start of something new, right? We're still going to have to pay attention to social distancing, but now people are more comfortable because the vaccine is here. And we somehow mentally sort of believe that it's all going to go away and disappear and we're less susceptible and stuff. That's really not the case. There's so much to talk about that hasn't already been said about coronavirus and the pandemic and what it's causing to the economy and to people's livelihoods. And I've honestly been fortunate and blessed to have a job, change jobs in between the pandemic, and still be able to sustain myself throughout this ordeal that a lot of people are suffering. And there's a lot of people in control who are watching people suffer, and it almost seems like they don't care. And you kind of have to take a look at things from the onset or from the outside, and to actually see that there's different aspects to what the pandemic is, and wherever you find yourself, there's still a factor that may play in, or an issue that plays to affect your life. So not everybody is getting away scot-free from the pandemic. And yeah, this actually feels good. It feels good to just sit down and talk on the mic and rap. The goal is to bring people in, bring guests in, and not have to resort to the online stuff. It just doesn't feel the same, and we don't have a lot of money into this effort. So we might have to put a clear divider, a glass divider. In restaurants, you walk from the front door to your seat with your mask on. And then as soon as you get to sit at your seat, you take your mask off as if COVID's taking a break so you can feed yourself and nourish yourself. And then to walk 15 feet back to the door, you have to put your mask on, or to even go to the bathroom, you have to put your mask on. Matt, have you dined out lately?
Yeah.
Isn't that pretty peculiar about the world? Like it doesn't make sense, the things that they're making us do. It really does not. And I've kind of given up on what everyone has to say about the pandemic. I take my vitamins, my vitamin D. I exercise. I do things to keep myself healthy and my girlfriend healthy and my baby healthy. And that's it. I don't pay attention to everything else and what everyone thinks that we should do. We've been sort of doing the same thing for almost a year since the pandemic started, and why am I going to change it up? Right? So, that being said,
it's been working.
It just freaks me out. It just freaks me out when you go into the store, even the food court. Let's say the food court. Now that they allow indoor dining, all of a sudden, when 2 weeks ago, I wasn't able to even eat in the food court. But 2 weeks ago, Matt, now I can go into the food court and sit down at the table and eat and take off my mask like nothing happened. It's mind blowing, and I think everyone's just kind of fallen into the fact that it doesn't make sense and accepted that it doesn't really make sense, and everyone's okay with it because we just want something to happen. I think everybody is just waiting for the powers that be to make a move so that everything's okay, right? You read news about what's going on in China, and they're living life normally as if even the epicenter of COVID, they're having like concerts, and people are they celebrated New Year's while everyone else, especially in America, especially here in Guam, stayed home. Matt, what did you do for New Year's?
I did not stay home.
You didn't? I stayed home. It was actually the first year since me and Kai got together that we stayed home, and it was pleasant. It was pleasant. What exactly did you do? Did you watch the fireworks show in Agate? I heard there was 4 different fireworks shows in Agate.
No, I did not watch that. I was just at a friend's house.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think that's what most people did, right? Was go to a friend or a family's house and celebrate it with people who are there close to. We actually celebrated with Kai's parents inside safely. We know the northern area gets a little rowdy during the New Year's time. So it is what it is, though. This whole pandemic, coronavirus, it all comes down to people are recovering from it. It's a 99% recovery rate. There's things that you can do to take care of your life. Here's another thing, Matt, about coronavirus that I don't get is people that wear their masks and smoke cigarette at the same time they're wearing their mask, right? So they're protecting themselves from COVID and then pull down the mask to take a puff of their cigarette and then blow it out and then put their mask back up so they don't get COVID.
Like there's no risk.
But I know you're a cigarette smoker, and it's not a downplay to cigarette smokers, because I did myself smoke cigarettes for about 12 years before I quit. And it's been about 2021, almost 4 years since I quit, and maybe 3 to 4 years since I quit. But nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense. So just do what you need to do to survive and live. And if you get COVID, you have a 99% chance of recovering. They're giving it to us as a vaccine, like the flu shot. People are feeling sore in the arm. They're kind of feeling a little ill. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or trying to make up some mumbo jumbo, but if it looks like a pig and it smells like a pig, probably a pig. is what I say. But yeah, I'm excited to get all these things started, and hopefully I can do more of these monologues more often, more digestible for you to listen to it in your car while you drive to work, whether you want to hear it or not. And that being said, Matt, thank you. What do you think about the studio before we cut out of here?
Sick. Dig it. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice. I was telling him about the. How did you like the wood ceilings, Matt?
Mind blowing. I didn't even.
Yeah. Look at Kai. She don't like it. I tried to get our bathroom wood ceilings, but it'll be the studio. It's gonna be sick, and I'm excited to share it with you. And once things start progressing with the studio, I'll start showing more of it. So thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. I have a few podcasts lined up, and we're gonna make it happen. I gotta clean the house first because it's messy. We were in the moving out phase for about a couple months, and then we're like, oh, let's gut out the whole house and renovate the whole house and take up a lot of our time. But we're here, and we're gonna do podcasts. We're gonna make it happen more often. And until next time, peace out.